My background is in electrical engineering with an underpart in computer engineering, so that's kind of my focus, and I'll go into a little bit more on that. Um, I've been working in the water industry now for about 10 years, but previous to that, it took me a little longer than normal to get my engineering degree. So graduated from Hanks in '02, so kind of gives my age away a little bit there at that point. Essentially, after high school, I went straight into college. I went straight to UTEP. I probably should have done community, to be completely honest, to go do my basics, because at that time there was a lot of issues as far as the quality of some of the programs there at UTEP, especially on the engineering side. On the math side is the bigger deal. And it would have saved me a lot of money. I should have done scholarships, but I got lazy. So don't be lazy. If you all can apply for scholarships, you should apply for scholarships, grants, all that stuff. It's a matter of filling out a few forms, and that's it. So basically, I financed most of myself through college myself. Some things I did take out some loans for, and other things I was able to pay completely on my own. It took me about 4 years after college to pay off all the loans that I had, because I took out the bare minimum that I possibly could. The financial side of college can be a big thing for a lot of people, but there are resources out there to do that. So the way I started the program there at UTEP for electrical engineering is a little bit different than your standard college program that I'm aware of, and most of the other degrees don't do anything like that. So we have new student orientation, which is for every student there at UTEP, but essentially I ended up in the electrical engineering program, which was a group of about 70, if I remember correctly, starting. And they first put you in an auditorium, and then they give you the official doctor speech is what they tell you. And so they say to look to the right, look to the left, because you or them aren't going to graduate from the program. Essentially, it is a difficult program, but it is an achievable program. I wouldn't change my degree at the end of the day for anything. If the water business goes down, which fortunately all of us always need water, so that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, hopefully. But if it does go away, I can always fall back on my electrical engineering, which now I unfortunately don't really do any electrical engineering, but I still have the degree in it to where I could go that route. So they give you the doctor's speech. Sorry, I get sidetracked. Give you the doctor's speech, and then tell you to look to the left and the right, and they were right. And at the end of the time, there was a group of 8 of us that we had gotten together. Used to hang out all the time, party a little too much at times, and out of that 8, I was the only one who graduated from electrical engineering. Now, other people graduated. Actually, most of them graduated, with the exception of one, I believe. But they went nursing, business. Actually, there was a few business, a couple nurses. Some switched to different types of engineering, because and you never know when you first start. And engineering sounds great to make a projector and everything, but then when you actually get into the school side of it, unfortunately, it's not as fun initially. And the math is the #1 thing. So if you like math right now, then you might have a good, decent fun time there at school. I mean, I'm not the type to advocate that I love school. I did school because I had to, not because I really wanted to. Same thing went with high school. I had decent grades in high school. College, I did a lot better, just because I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to make my money at the end of the day. That literally puts more money in your pockets, especially when it comes to electrical engineering. If you graduate with below a 3.0 in electrical engineering, you're not going to get a job when you graduate. And best case scenario, you'll get a job, as bad as this sounds, with the government. When it comes to engineers, private industry pays a lot more. So a new electrical engineer, you might start with the government at $60,000 a year, and with a private company, you'll jump up to 90 to 100 above a 3.0. Only if you have above a 3.0. Every point you're above a 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, 4.0, and you're going to guarantee a job anywhere you want, anywhere in the world. There was one person that graduated with the 4.0 when I was at UTEP, and that shows how difficult it is to actually get that done. The guy was a genius, but unfortunately had no common sense. And he was an interesting guy, worked in the baking industry for a little while. Older, it might have been a little bit more useful for him, because he was a lot more mature than a lot of us, where we were all 21 at that time, and he was 30, give or take, so he had a little bit of help on that side. But the electrical program is great. You have to get good grades. And for any degree, you get good grades and you get more money in your pocket at the end of the day. I own the company I'm working for now. And by doing that, I literally have a meeting where I test people on their skills. And when I do that, I sit there with the thing of petty cash. And if you get something right, I give you money. And how does everybody like to get money when you get a right answer in class? You don't think about it when you get an A here, but that's literally what you're doing. You're putting money in your pocket, not now, but later on. So education and grades are a big deal, even though you don't think about it right now. It sounds so much better to go party, which we all do it, and everybody's going to party from time to time, but don't let it get to excess. So, and your grades literally affect the amount of money in your pocket at the end of the day. So my electrical engineering, our graduating class was, I want to say about 75 students. It took me a little longer to get through the program. So as I was going through school, I was working side jobs. I worked at my first job was at a restaurant. After that, I love cars, so I started working doing car audio stuff, and I worked at a few different places around just because I like working with my hands, and it was electronics. Cars, electronics, and you get paid for it, cool, why not? So did that for a few years, got tired of that because of the places I was working at, and at that point, my dad owned Industrial Water Services. At that point, the company consisted of about 7 people total between El Paso and Juarez. We have an El Paso division and Juarez division. Doing that for a couple of years, he told me I was fed up with working that. He's like, well, you can come deliver salt. And at that time, we had just gotten a contract with the schools all around the area. So literally all I did all day long was drive around and unload 50-pound bags of salt. And depending on the location, 7, 8, 10 bags, and did that while I was going to school. Never planned to get into water treatment. I loved electrical engineering, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Long story short, I ended up starting to like water treatment. After that, once I decided I was going to stay with the company, I went from doing a full schedule, and it took me about 2 extra years to graduate because I was only doing 1-2 classes a semester just because I was working full-time as well. And it's right during the day, and they don't offer engineering classes at night, especially senior level classes and so forth, which is what I was at that point. So it took me in total about 6 years to graduate, 2 years longer than it should have in the program. But I don't regret it because I was getting professional experience at that time. And for lack of a better words, my degree at that point was kind of irrelevant. Although my father told me, if you don't get your degree, then you're never going to progress anymore with this company either. So I would have, if I had the choice to drop out, that would have been nice. But to be honest, I don't like school. I'll reiterate again, and the whole summer and school thing don't go together, and neither does home and work. Just my opinion, but you have to do it, unfortunately, either way. Sure, Duty didn't like that one.
That's okay.
So it's, yeah, so and that's kind of background on my school. It took me 6 years. I graduated with a good GPA, so part of that, the experience that you get in school is basically what you put into it. So a lot of, when you graduate from electrical engineering, if you don't have a job 6 months before you're going to graduate, you're basically going to be struggling when you graduate. And I knew where I was going to work 6 months. Everybody that I was in school with, and they were all intelligent people, had good grades, they had a job 6 months before they even graduated. And nowadays you hear, oh, I can't find a job after I got a degree. Well, what'd you get your degree in? Underwater basket weaving? Well, then there's a problem there. So I mean, your degree choice makes a big difference. And you talk about right now engineering, nurses, chemical engineering is the biggest, quickest, highest paying degree you can get right now. I have a chemical engineer that works for me, and I have to pay them a pretty penny to get them. That's just the way it goes. And so your degree will make a big impact on your life on what you choose. And you have to have a degree nowadays. And back then you can get a job with a high school diploma. Now you can't do that. Now you have to have a bachelor's at a minimum. The good thing about electrical engineering, though, is you really don't need to go above your undergrad, above your bachelor's of science in electrical engineering. A master's, PhD, all that stuff is kind of irrelevant in the scheme of electrical engineers because they're not going to teach you any more at the master's level than what you learned at the undergrad level because your employer is going to teach you. The engineering program, they say, does not teach you how to be an electrical engineer and to design this keyboard. or this mouse or the projector. It basically teaches you how to think so that you can do that with the tools that your employer give you. And your employer is going to teach you at the end of the day how to design that, or how to design the light switch or the light bulbs themselves. And nobody at school is going to teach you how to do that. They're going to teach you math that takes up the whole board, and you're going to forget that math actually uses numbers, and all you're going to use is letters in math anymore, which is horrible. And if you like numbers, unfortunately, those things go away as you get into your upper level classes. There's a few classes that are pretty difficult, nothing that's unachievable. And there is literally nobody that put in the time that didn't pass. And there was people that didn't put in the time and didn't pass. So after school, went to work full time. Halfway through school, there was a breakup, I guess you could say, within the company. So it went from being a partnership to just my father owning it. And by doing that, I had to take a big step into running the company compared to where I was just a salt delivery guy before that. So I had to learn a lot rather quickly as far as the company goes, and took over all the design and engineering that we do now. So onto the company side, Industrial Water Services, basically we're a supplier of water treatment equipment on the manufacturing, industrial, municipal side. So we'll provide a system to the El Paso water utilities that'll treat the water for drinking. Our bigger business is actually towards manufacturing facilities, and basically, best way I can explain it is manufacturing requires a very specific type of water. That could be for electronics, for an electrical engineer doing a microchip. By doing that, they need very, very clean water. So we'll produce water that actually is so clean, as soon as air touches it, it's contaminated. We'll do that, and then they contaminate that water by their process. So then we'll go back in and we actually provide equipment to treat that water so that they can reuse it, they can send it down the drain, do whatever at that point. So we'll provide all the equipment basically from start to finish, as well as all the intermediary steps between that have to do with cooling and things along that. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do as far as industrial water services. And we've provided equipment throughout the US and Mexico. In a couple weeks, I'll be at Sandia Labs to start up an equipment that actually treats radioactive wastewater. So, and it's an industry that I never would have guessed I would have liked, but it's an interesting industry because every week it's a new problem. It's not every week doing the exact same thing. It's not being at the exact same place. I never know where I'm going to get a call to head out to next week. So it's fun. I wouldn't change it for anything else. Since those days, we've grown from about 7 employees to almost 50. So the company is growing steadily, and it's hard right now. One of the biggest problems I have, which is why I like doing some kind of talk like this, is finding qualified people that actually have experience. Water treatment's not something you can go get a degree on. And it's a mixture of chemical engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, metallurgy, and physics, all sorts of things. List every science you could possibly think of, and that's what comes into play on a daily basis for our company. That experience that you can gain in college, co-ops, internships, is one of the most important things you could possibly do as far as while you're in school. Co-ops and internships, when you go, so back to my school days kind of, when you're looking for a job, you basically have 2 things that they're looking at, your GPA and your experience. And your experience, well, how do you get experience as an electrical engineer when you're not an electrical engineer? Co-ops, internships. They will pay you or pay for your school so that you can go to Dallas, Washington, D.C., New York, wherever, and work for 3 months, 6 months, a year, just depending on the application. You can work for NASA, you can work for Lockheed Martin, you can work for Raytheon, GE, any company you could possibly think of that has a lot of zeros behind how much they're worth. And you can go work for those. That experience is all done by, you'll go to a convention where they're all there and they're looking for people that want to learn. And you start talking with them. If you feel interested, they feel interested in you, then they'll take you out there. By getting that experience, you are guaranteed a job when you graduate. And if you have a good GPA to go with it, then you're also guaranteed that job with a lot of zeros behind it. It makes all the difference in the world. It was strange to me to hear how people are struggling to find a job after they graduate. And I'm like, we already have jobs we've known for 6 months before we graduate. I don't understand that. And it was different to me at the time. I was only dealt with engineers, and that was it. So it's that co-op and internship experience is almost as important as your GPA. Same thing I look for. If I get somebody that puts I read a lot of resumes for people looking when I'm hiring. And if they have a 3.6, but they never worked a day in their life, do you think I hire that person? I would much rather them have McDonald's next to it and Village Inn and a dishwasher and something and a 3.8 GPA or 3.3 GPA at that point compared to the guy with a 3.8 but no experience. And the experience and the GPA go a long way. Trying to think what else I was supposed to cover. Anybody have any questions then at this point, and I can kind of expand on anything? Yes?
What is the best way to go about the internship? You said seminars?
Best way to go about internships. So there is a lot of resources available to you from the university, but you have to go get them. Nobody goes up to you and goes, oh, here you go, here's an opportunity. And they go and they leave the opportunity at the desk and tell you, come get it. So basically, there at UTEP, there's different ways. Professors are a good way. If you start talking with your professors, they talk with a lot of the recruiters from the company. So they could tell you, hey, NASA's looking for people to work on a little camera that will basically be going up in a telescope. And that's literally what you would work on for 6 months, a year, and they pay you for it. Drive out to White Sands to do that. So professors is a good route. The recruiting fairs are a huge thing. Basically, you'll have anywhere from 50 to 100 recruiters at the ones that UTEP puts on, and community does some as well too. You could just go talk to people, have a package full of resumes and talk to every single one you possibly can. You never know who would be a good one, who would be a bad one, and the more resumes you put out, the better chance that you have of getting noticed. And you have to dress nice. If you go out there and you're just in torn jeans and a hat on and everything, then are you going to get a job? No. You have to make a good impression. You have to learn how to look at people in their eyes, shake their hands correctly. All of that makes all the difference in the world to the recruiter, because you got 30 seconds to impress that recruiter so that they put a star next to your resume when you meet them. And after that 30 seconds is gone, then that's it. Then you got to remember there's 200 people that are giving them a resume that day. So the resources at the schools and the conventions are the best way. Mm-hmm.
I got a question, and something we talked about the other day. I didn't take anything personal about Paul outside of what he does, but he's the youngest of 4, and his 3 older siblings all went to school. And I'm curious if that had any effect on you in terms of why you wanted to go to school. Not specifically your field, but did that impact you at all?
Slightly. I'm very competitive, so I wanted to compete with my siblings, just if nothing else, being the youngest especially. There's a bigger age gap between me and my closest sibling compared to the rest of my siblings. So they were all pretty much graduated from college already by the time I was going through. There was only one that was still in when I started college. But I still had that mentality where I wanted to, A, get a more prestigious degree than everybody, and B, I wanted to get better grades than everybody, just because I'm very competitive, and anybody who's got older siblings in here knows that your bigger ones like to ride on them, or if you're the older ones, you like to ride on us little ones. So it's just kind of the way it goes. But yeah, that does make a difference as far as that. Then for sure, after that point, knowing that all 3 of my siblings were going to get a degree, I had to get a degree. I couldn't be the one left out.
One more thing. How'd your parents feel when you graduated?
They were excited. Yeah, and it's a big thing. So my parents basically are not from any money. We've ended up fairly well off, but they didn't start that way. My dad was born in Durango, Mexico, and came over when he was about 6, I believe. Grew up for the most part in Las Cruces. My mom was born in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Same thing, bounced around, and she tells me how they grew up in trailer parks and this and that. And same thing with my dad, where he grew up was dirt floors and no hot water, all sorts of different things, so and a complete different experience than what I'm used to. But he's a worker at the end of the day. My dad doesn't have a degree, my mom doesn't have a degree. She was a dental assistant for a while. My dad he's a salesman, actually, is basically what it comes down to. He can sell an Eskimo ice, and he's done very well at that. So his days started out with jewelry. He started working for a tiny little jewelry store in Las Cruces, grew from there to work for a larger jewelry company, and eventually became the regional vice president, which basically consists of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, somewhere in that area, as far as what he ran for this large jewelry chain. So he did very well without a degree. Unfortunately, could he get to the position that he got to nowadays? No, not without a degree. You can't grow to that level without some kind of degree behind your name. So, and my parents basically just worked hard at the end of the day and have done well for themselves and for our family.
Any other questions from anybody for Paul?
Yes, sir.
Why did you choose this career in particular?
My career or my degree?
Your degree.
So why would I choose my degree? I love electronics, and I can sit down with a projector for hours and just play with all the settings. And when I was little, I used to, how I started learning with electronics was first thing was to put a key inside the socket, and that hurts. So that was my first experience with electricity, and I've been shocked many times since, including in school. You do work with some dangerous stuff even while you're in school. I'll tell another story on that one, but so I basically chose it because of that. That's what I love doing. It was fun for me. So, and if you choose a degree right now that you think is what you want to do, maybe you like it, maybe you don't at the end of the day, but switch if you don't like it. And there's no reason to keep going through all that. And most of the degree programs that I see now have an initial class that kind of tries to immerse you into what they think or what you're going to do for the most part, so you kind of get an idea on whether or not you want to stay in that path or not. But it was what I loved. So I mean, if you love writing, then be an English major. And if you love, if you think that every time you go over a bridge is the coolest thing ever, then be a civil engineer, mechanical engineer, whatever it is at that point. So as long as you, at the end of the day, and I talk about electrical engineering because you can make money doing it, and it's what I like doing, but it's not for everybody. It is a good path, but money at the end of the day is nothing if you're not happy doing your job. And if I had to get up and be like, crap, I have to go to work today, every day, I don't care how much money you would pay me, I wouldn't want to do it. And I do it because I like it now. And that's the only reason I switched from electrical into water, because I like it, not because I was going to make more money or because I was going to eventually own the company. And would I own an electrical engineering company today? No, probably not. But I would still be enjoying myself. So yeah, whatever you like and whatever your hobbies are.
I have a question for you. Many jobs has parts of it that you don't like or that you're not good at. You may enjoy electrical engineering, but you mentioned you had a lot of math. As an English major, I had to learn Latin and memorize Chaucer. Not my favorite things, even though I loved reading. My point is, with your degree and your math, did you get any help? Did you need to get any help? Did you need to get any extra or do any extra work for the parts that were more difficult?
Yeah, there's a couple of notorious classes in electrical engineering that are very difficult, especially depending on the professor that you were to get. And electromagnetic fields is probably one of the harder classes that you take there, and it has a notoriously high dropout rate and failure rate. And I don't know how much you guys have experienced with scales as far as sliding scales for grading. You will eventually, especially if you choose engineering. So basically the way a sliding scale works is everybody takes the same test, but everybody might get a 20 on it out of 100. And basically, whoever got the 20 gets an A, whoever got an 18 gets a B, and it just goes down at that point. So that class has a lot of that kind of going on. So classes like that, I would do, I would get some help. I mean, we would study hours and hours and hours and hours. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of help outside of the TA for that class or those types of classes. You can't go to the library where the math tutors are and get help on that kind of math, and they're just not there. They can help you up to like calculus, and that's it. But for electrical engineering, calculus is your first math class, not whereas most other degrees, that's your last math class if you even have to take calculus at that point. So.
Thank God I majored in English. Wow.
And so, yeah, and it comes down to having a group of friends. And see the group here talking and stuff, and you'd be amazed how much help you can get from helping each other. I might get one part, and then you might get another part, and you might get another part, and between the three of us, we could all figure it out. And that is actually what they teach engineering, because it is a team-based thing. You never work by yourself on a project. You're always working as a group.
I think we had a question over here, Jim.
I wonder now, you studied electrical engineering, now you're working with water, with electricity and wetness, dangerous? Are you looking for danger in your life?
Yeah, that's what the joke is always, what are you doing in water? Electricity and water don't mix. Actually, they do, and you can conduct. Water that we produce is not conductive a lot of times, so I can throw water all in that faucet all in that fixture, and I won't get electrocuted with the water that we could produce. So, yeah, I would have never guessed to be in this industry, in the water treatment industry, but it's been entertaining to be in it, because one day to the next, you never know what the problem is. And that whole Flint, Michigan thing, and everybody heard about what's going on with the water over there getting contaminated. That's something that we would take care of, and we can address that kind of issue. I deal with radioactive waste one day, food manufacturing the next day, and it's never the same solution. It's always a different solution. The system I designed today probably won't work tomorrow. So that's what I like about my industry, is that it's never the same thing day over day. I'm not doing the exact same thing.
I got one more final question for you, and it deals with after you graduated. What do you think's been the biggest perk that your degree has gotten you? And let me give you some context. Like with mine, the one thing I never thought I would get to do is spend as much time with my kids as I do. My degree has given me the flexibility in my schedule to drop off my kids in the morning, pick them up after school. I can spend time with them all day Tuesday, all day Thursday. And I didn't get that as a kid. My parents had to go to work, and that's in essence what it was. That's a huge thing that I never thought I would ever get. So what's been a big perk or a big advantage for you that your degree's given you that you hadn't anticipated?
Probably the flexibility. You don't find electrical engineers that are hourly. Basically, we're all salary at that point. So we get a set amount a year, whether we work 40 hours a week, 20 hours a week, or 100 hours a week. It just depends on what's going on. So that flexibility is, I think, probably the biggest thing for me. I don't have any kids or anything, so I work a lot. I put in a lot of hours, which I kind of enjoy. It's different for me, and then it's different for everybody else. There's not a lot of people that like to work as many hours as I do, but the payoff at the end of the day is nice. But so yeah, and the best way I could say as far as the degree would be the flexibility that it allows, which kind of plays into what you were saying as far as being flexible to spend time with family and so forth. And I do get weekends off for the most part. It's rare I have to work nights, and yeah. So long story short is the flexibility.
Do you take your job home? Like I take my job
Yeah.
home. Do you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a computer that's set up just for that and everything at home that I can work on there, and because of electrical engineering background, everything's set up so I can log into my server at home. I can do all sorts of different things. Our systems, I can actually log in right now from any computer to a water treatment system that's in the middle of nowhere right now. So that kind of stuff is cool for me. I think that's cool that I can control a whole plant from a computer that's 1,000 miles away. So that's what's fun.
UTEP just got all these grants for water treatment, and my daughter worked with that lab there. Does your industry do anything
Yeah, oh yeah, we do a lot. We actually provide most of the equipment over there for the SIDS. All the new buildings over there, we provided all the equipment for, all the high purity water. And then there's the SIDS program, Center for Inland Desalinization Research. We provide all their, actually we have a trailer of theirs at our office right now that we're rebuilding for them that's going to be sent over to Venezuela for testing and so forth. Yeah, we do all the engineering, everything in-house, and we have manufacturing both here and in Juarez. And yeah, we do everything from scratch as far as that goes. All the programming, wiring, construction, welding, all that's all done in-house. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Paul? Well, in that case, Paul, thank you much for coming. It's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Paul, nice to meet you.
Thanks, sir.
If you guys want, you guys can come on up. I'll introduce you to Paul if you have any questions